welcome to another podcast of EASports Talk. I, of course, am Ezra A. Skobloff, and we got a nice little day going on here for you. Special guest Danny Honey Badger coming up for us just in a little bit to talk about some ASU Sun Devil football, and we're going to, of course, talk about Eagles, but we're going to spend some time on one of the Eagles' rivals thanks to their fan base, who I love. It's time for Birds of War. Ah, ah! Oh yeah, that song always gets me going. Unfortunately, it's to talk about a game that was pretty pathetic from our Birds' vantage point. Really, even from any vantage point, if you at all heard Donovan McNabb's halftime chest bump, it was pretty funny. Basically, it was him telling the fans, "Hey, remember we brought you 6 banners up there." Okay, Donovan, stop talking about yourself and go away. So, obviously, as I mentioned, not the greatest game, and like a lot of you, I was pretty pissed off the day after, even the day after that contest, if that's what you want to call it. Obviously a lot that you could talk about with this game, but I'm going to choose to focus on just a few things here. Really disappointing, obviously, to see Mike Vick play the way he did. I think a lot of people after this game talked about he had 2 good games and then he did pretty well, or rather, yeah, had 2 pretty games and did pretty poorly in that game against Kansas City. I didn't see it that way. I believe last week I spoke of the inaccuracies that Vic had, especially on the deep balls to Deshaun Jackson that could have been killer and put the game certainly in a nice place in terms of the way the game was going and the momentum, but he didn't make those throws, and I'm not going to put the game on him, but certainly if he makes a couple more throws, that game against San Diego looks a bit different. But gee, at halftime of this game, I was definitely ready to move on from Michael Vick, and I don't blame Chip Kelly for putting him back in. I am normally an optimist about anything sports related, but really I'm just a realist and I call it like I see them. I guess I'm an optimist relative to Philadelphia sports fans, especially Eagles fans. So I don't know what that really means in terms of my optimism, but definitely try to look at it with a unbiased natural view of things. And I didn't see what the point of having him come back in that game was. I think that, you could put him back in. Like I said, I don't blame Kelly for doing it, but I didn't expect anything to change, and nothing really did change. And, part of me said after that game, well, if I didn't want him in at halftime, then certainly I don't want him in against Denver this Sunday. But again, I'm just trying to think of it as real as I possibly can, realistic, I guess that is. And while I would I don't know that it's Nick Foles that I definitely want either Foles or Barkley to have a chance. I think you'd obviously give it to Foles before you would Barkley, but I would like to see him play, but because I'm a realist, I understand that, go ahead and give Mike Vick the start in Denver. For me, that's his last opportunity, and he's had one really good half. The team, rather, has had one really good half, some sporadic good play in there, but for me, it's just, even when the big, terrible plays aren't happening, there's still some poor throws that just make me think that he's he doesn't have it anymore. Does he have the ability to win some football games? I think he does, but at this point, what are we playing him for? This is a team that maybe we do still have a shot, considering that the leader in the division is the Cowboys at 2-1. We haven't played them yet. We're already 1-0 in division, as are they. They've beat the putrid New York Giants. But, I feel like this game, let them play. This is a game where obviously it's away. It's against a great Denver team with a pretty solid defense on paper. No Von Miller, of course, and hopefully you've been following some of that and his idiocy. If you haven't, he basically tried to collude with one of the drug test assistants, collectors, I guess, into helping him out to use someone else's urine so that he wouldn't have a negative test. Rather, wow, can't speak today. Wouldn't have a positive test, which he knew he would get if he used his own urine. So that's why, in case you didn't realize, why he had a 4-game suspension bumped up to a 6-game suspension after his appeal. That's what was happening there. But obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the league, a dangerous offense built around passing, which of course is the Eagles' weakness in their secondary, of course. So you know what? Let him play, see what he does. Maybe he does play a nice, solid game. After last week, after really the week before, I don't see that happening. And because of that, let him play. If we're 1-3 and he doesn't play well, you got to move to Nick Foles. And not because Foles is the answer to the savior to the season, but you got a second-year quarterback and a rookie quarterback that we don't know if they're the future. Mike Vick is not the future, and Mike Vick is playing horribly right now. So if you're going to figure out if we're going to use a high draft pick on picking Teddy Bridgewater or whatever other quarterback that's in there, I've heard that there are 6 potential first-round caliber quarterbacks next year. We need to figure out what we have, and if nothing else, to show off to the league what we have, to get something in return from at least one guy who's another Andy Reid draft selection. So we'll see how that goes. But for me, with Vic, for every great play that he has, and he had a couple mostly running last week, which, by the way, great plays, but you could see that he has certainly lost the step. I don't know how Shady McCoy ever lost a foot race to him. Maybe it's because it was training camp and they haven't gotten pounded on yet. And we know Vic loves getting that throughout the season. But for every one of those good plays, I feel like there are 2 bad plays and definitely some poor throws, whether they be the interceptions that he had or the big 3rd down plays where he just would be so off target and throw so far behind his receiver running a crossing pattern, for instance, or slant. And it's just, I don't know how you can be an NFL caliber starting caliber quarterback, and not be able to make those throws. And that's not really a knock so much on him. He does have the flashes. It's just really that I don't see the benefit of him playing at this point. So I'll give him this 4th game. If the Eagles are 1-3, then, it's time we cut our losses. I don't know if that means we release him or trade him or keep him on. That's up to him and how you think he's going to act, and will he be a professional if that happens. So we'll see. But on the bright side, I guess kind of, I just want to get into the Kelly offense real quick, because a lot of people, especially in Philly Talk Radio, have been giving it a little bit to Chip Kelly and whether his offense works and this and that. I just want to give you some stats real quick to let you know. Vic, despite his shortcomings, especially of late, is top 10 in passing, and he was actually leading the league after 2 games. LaShawn McCoy is first in rushing yards by 98 yards to the second running back. in the NFL, and certainly that was a big part of Kelly's offense coming in about running the football. And obviously LeSean McCoy's a great running back, but you see what he can do now in a rushing offense as opposed to Andy Reid's rush at 5 times a game, including 3 runs for Michael Vick. Deshaun Jackson is second in receiving yards. He was first coming into week 3 as well. And the total offense is averaging 462 yards per game. That is also first in the NFL. So I think a lot of the scoring shortcomings, which they're about 26 points per game, which is still top 10, but I put that a lot on Mike Vick. Of course, we know that's been an issue of his, but I also put it on the receivers that we don't really have, because as great as Deshaun is, he's not the type of guy you're looking for in the red zone. And at the same time, I'd like to see Zach Ertz get a little bit more work in the red zone as well. But, a lot of this is personnel. Obviously, we have a new coach who's running new things. And yes, he does have some talent to work with, but he still needs time to get the exact personnel that he wants. And Riley Cooper just ain't cutting it. I would expect that Jason Avant would be getting some more work in the red zone, especially because of his capabilities on third down. But not a huge receiver, but certainly a lot bigger than Deshaun Jackson. And lastly, team rushing yards. Eagles are first with 209 per game. So the yardage is there. The offensive output is there. It's just a matter of points. And Chip Kelly knows that. And it's just a matter of training his team and preparing his team for those situations and getting the right personnel. And part of that, too, is the offensive line, which has underperformed to this point. So, we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to move on to our NFC East division rival, because it was beyond me this week to hear Giants fans laughing about the Eagles losing. The Eagles now are 1-2. I've named those stats. Certainly some problems. I don't see anything big happening this year, but again, if they can pull it together, I think they still can contend for the NFC East title. But Giants fans calling in and literally cackling. You sirs and sirettes, I'll just go with women's, you really make it funny for me, because as bad as the Eagles played and have played this season, minus 1/2, the Giants are god-awful, just god-awful. You guys really make me laugh, and I'm glad that you were able to be on TV in Philadelphia so I could watch Carolina, who, by the way, is also 0-2, make you look like a bad college football team. I'm talking like FCS. They don't even deserve to be like the Big East or whatever the hell they call themselves now. To give you a little stats, of course I'm going to do my research on them if I'm going to do my research on the Eagles. They are last in rushing at 44.3 yards a game. Yes, that is right, Giants fans. We are running almost 4 times as many yards per game than you are. You are last in points allowed at 38.3 points per game. So as bad as we think that the Eagles' defense is, we could be the New York Football Giants. You are also last in turnover differential. Thank you, Eli Manning and David Wilson, at -9 over 3 games. Good luck winning football games that way. That's 9 picks and 4 fumbles. You're also tied for last in sacks with just 3, despite supposedly having one of the best defensive lines in the game. We're going to move on now to our next segment, and let's get her going. Drop the beat. And now, your ASU Song Update. Let's get wasted. Let's get wasted. All right, you Devil fans, I want to welcome a very special guest and good friend, Danny Honey Badger, to the show. He is a good friend of mine, as I mentioned, and definitely ASU enthusiast like myself. How's it going, Danny?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me today.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just so you guys know, Danny's doing this at work, so he knows what's important in this world, and it's certainly Sun Devil football. So obviously, last game, you and I were texting throughout, and in case you don't know, Danny certainly does. It got pretty bad to the point where I really couldn't watch anymore, and I'll tell you. It takes a lot for me to not watch my own football team play. Even the Eagles game this week, I watched all the way through. Maybe part of that was because I had to go to bar because I don't have NFL Network. Either way, it got pretty bad. So in case you guys don't know, 42-28 loss. But what do you think, Danny? Does the score represent how it went, considering 29-0 at the half? Or does that look a little bit better for ASU, considering how they played in the fourth quarter?
I think it was representative. There was a good effort in the second half. The Stanford Cardinals did pull some starters, including the starting quarterback Hogan,
Yeah.
in the second half. But there was some fight in ASU in the second half, and at some point you have to look for respectability. So I think it showed the score, but 2-touchdown loss was definitely what we deserved, at least.
So, do you think that the good old pollsters, who, by the way, still they have us at 26, so just outside of the top 25, assuming that, considering that, do you think then that the pollsters and the voters also see it that way as a respectable loss?
I don't think so. I think a respectable loss to a top 5 team, if you're in the 20s, you might drop a spot or two, but AP, I think, was the one that has us at 26. If you look at coaches, though, we're in the 30s.
Okay.
ESPN Power Rankings, also not 26. So we dropped more than a couple spots.
Yeah,
in their eyes, at least.
At least because we still have 1 year, I believe, of BCS Bowl, poll, whatever the hell it is, AP is all that matters. So we still have a potential shot at the national championship because AP has us at 26.
Maybe an outside chance, but that's not where my money is.
I didn't watch the press conference. Why would I? But Todd Graham last year often said, "Well, we can still achieve what we want to, win the Pac-12 South, potentially go to the Rose Bowl," and that still is, a possibility. So, despite the poor effort and how they came out so flat, if you can even give calling it flat, a slap in the face and saying that, that still is there, and obviously USC next week is a big game.
Huge game. Just to follow up, one possibility even for the new ranking is, or lack thereof, I should say, is lack of respect for Stanford. I don't think anyone outside the Pac-12 blog really cares about Stanford at this point. They're all Duck fans. And it's still yet to be seen. I was skeptical of Stanford coming in. They showed me some real poise and some strength on both sides of the line. They definitely have a big old team with some talent. So looking south, though, Pac-12 South I do see as a relatively open race right now. Whether USC can really challenge, whether U of A can, I'm skeptical, but at least ASU, UCLA is looking really strong.
Yeah,
that was
definitely.
A game we let slip away last year, and I don't think ASU is ready to face them yet, but I'm hoping by the time we do in week 9 or 10, hopefully we'll have it together.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that's towards the end of the season. I think in the last 3 games, but at least, we got USC next week, then Notre Dame, and those will be big, but the competition does fall off a little bit, and, obviously the hope is that I don't think we can lose more than one of these games in the stretch. And I do think that we have a very good possibility of beating all these teams because obviously USC hasn't been playing well. Notre Dame hasn't really looked that good either. And then after that, I believe it's Washington State and Colorado. So hopefully we can get some momentum going. But real quickly, just to go back on how they were unprepared, I just want to know what your thoughts are on Todd Graham. I kind of have to put the way they came out in the first half on the preparation of the team, which of course has got to be put on Graham. And then, of course, as you know, I'm not a fan of the mismanagement, in my opinion, and use of his timeouts, especially in the second half. What do you see of Graham so far in this season?
It's really tough to tell. I don't know if we're far enough into the season to throw him completely under the bus. I don't think by any means. He was pretty quick to admit his errors against Wisconsin. As for this past game, it's really tough to tell. I put some of the blame. I mean, he's not a Lane Kiffin calling plays. I think Mike Norvell takes some of the heat for. I think we talked about, we were even talking during the game, that just very poor second down calls. And when we were having nice first downs, we were throwing on second down rather than using and throwing downfield. I mean, our bread and butter. You have Marion Grice and DJ Foster. I mean, throw them out in the flat, or just a little pitch out of the backfield, and you have 2-3 yards right there, easy to the fastest guys in the conference.
Mike Norvell, by the way, offensive coordinator for you listeners who didn't know who that was.
Yeah, thanks. On the defensive side, it was hard to tell if it was just that we were so dang undersized, or Stanford had better play calling. What I noticed on a lot of occasions, announcers were really quick to point this out too, was the size of the backfield that they put in on big third downs. Mm-hmm. They'd get third down, and they'd have eight linemen on the field. They would even have a true fullback.
The guys without names on the back of their jerseys, because I don't know if they switched it to put them in offense or what, but that was kind of funny to me.
But I would agree overall, Stanford much better prepared for this game than ASU coming in. One other thing would be Taylor Kelly. He's historically poor on the road.
I didn't even think he played that well last week, as I mentioned in the last podcast, but he obviously came up with a lot better play in the fourth quarter, which obviously matters the most, but you would have expected more from him at this point. And I guess for me, and this gets into one of the topics I wanted to talk about, is the progression of Kelly, because I think I read a lot about his progression and heard Tom Grand saying how he's made strides, but maybe it's just because the competition is so stiff at this point in the season, but I don't even think he looked this bad last year. Maybe that's just because I have a terrible memory. What are you seeing?
Again, it's so early to tell. We've had 3 games, one of which was a patsy, and Wisconsin, like you said, it was a good effort, but it's hard to say against 2 of probably the top 10 or 15 defenses in the country. Playing about some really strong defenses, and so to sell him out right now, I think might not do justice. And he showed what he's capable of in the fourth quarter. I just wonder, where was that in the first quarter? Is it really that they gave up in the fourth, and that's the only reason he was getting, I think, 260 plus yards in the second half? Is that the true Kelly? Well, what's the true Kelly?
No, I mean, I think Kelly is definitely a good quarterback, and I'm not want to throw him under the bus. I certainly don't want any other of the guys. It's not a Mike Vick situation where I could see some other players play at this point. But I'm just kind of wondering what factors are playing in for his poor performance. At least, he certainly hasn't looked great in the first 3 games, and obviously looked great against an FCS opponent, but we'll, like you said, throw that out the window. But part of me wonders, if the offense seems a little lost because they're just consistently, and sort of for good reason, looking for Philly native Jalen Strong, and he has 24 catches for 330 yards, definitely solid, but it's a big drop off from there. You got Foster and Grice are second and third, and a lot of those, of course, are shorter passes. After that, you have my boy Chris Coyle McPoyle, who hasn't really shown up too much this year, or at least hasn't been thrown to that much. 6 catches, 126 yards. And then after him, Rick Smith, who I wish would just get, released from the squad immediately because he sucks so bad. But somehow he has 8 catches amidst all these drops for 56 yards. So I don't know. I feel like they're not spreading the ball around enough, and maybe that's just because Strong is so much better. But I feel like our offense looks worse because we're keying in on this one guy who's clearly the best.
Complex issue. I'm definitely going to give some props to Jalen Strong. The man is clearly come as advertised to the Devils so far. Almost everything thrown in his direction is hauled in. One thing that I would like to see a little more of, and again we're talking FTS opponent, but someone who looks pretty strong and I was really hopeful for coming out of the Sac State game was Kevin Ozier.
Yeah,
other people pronounce it. We're talking about someone at least 6'4". He looks a lot. I hardly remember him from last year. He's a senior at this point, but he's got a lot of muscle on him too. He should be fighting for some balls.
Yeah, it's weird because other than Strong, who clearly is the best pass catcher we have, it's weird that we don't throw the ball really to receivers, and it's even more odd that Smith, that bum, is getting more targets seemingly than any other guy, minus the 2 running backs and Jalen Strong. So I don't know. It was like that before, actually. Last season, obviously, we didn't have Strong, but it seemed like we were always going towards Coyle, who had 50-plus catches, and Foster and Grice. So I'm not sure if that's just the way the offense is built or the play calling, where there really aren't too many opportunities for those receivers. But I definitely saw some good things from him and some of the other receivers, sans Rick Smith, of course. But yeah.
I'm wondering where Chris Coyle fits into it all. I don't know if he was bogged down with blocking duties this past game against Stanford, but he deserved more touches than I saw him take, and I'm not even sure I saw him get a catch until the touchdown pass over the middle. That's a play that works very well with him. We are tight end due to some degree, and we really should be utilizing him out of the off the line.
Yeah. Well, so we just got about a minute or two here, and real quick, I want to preview the USC game. We alluded to it a little bit, but just to give you some stats and let me know what your thoughts on it, we can give some predictions. USC has not played good teams so far, by the way. Hawaii, Washington State, whom they lost to, Boston College, and Utah State. And they have scored about 22 and a half points per game. That's 95th in college football. They have allowed, however, 11 points per game, which is also 11th in college football, but again, against the poor competition. What do you see here? Let me know what your thoughts are and give me your prediction.
So USC is one of those big question marks for this season so far. Again, it's early. You look at this. You look at their rank. Their wins and losses, and you have a 3-1 team. It should be said that Utah State finished, I believe, 15th or 16th in the country last season. So no patsies over from Orem, Utah, but they are obviously a defensive team at this point. They can't figure it out on offense, and at least in the passing game. I like our run defense. One thing I saw a lot of from USC was against Utah State was the running game to the outside, and that's what killed us against Wisconsin. I'm sure they're going to watch the tape and see the same thing. But Stanford was able to run up the middle against us, so expect USC to keep it on the ground with their very strong running game and not try to overutilize their fresh talent at QB.
So
looking for. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Let's hear the prediction. Just a couple seconds left here. Let's hear it.
Yep. Score. I'm going to go with 32 ASU, and USC will give them 17 just to be nice.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, Ezra Skoboff on paper before he said it. I have 31-17, so great minds clearly think alike. Or we're just going to look really dumb when we lose somehow to USC. So
we'll hope it's another maroon monsoon like
yeah.
2 years ago.
Let's hope so. So,
fantastic win.
So why don't you give me a quick sign-off, Danny?
Well, just thanks for having me. Hopefully we'll be back after the win this weekend. Go Devils.
All right, thank you very much. That's EA Sports Talk. I'm Ezra Skoboloff. You heard Danny Honey Badger, and we'll see you next week.